if you're running a center and somebody comes running up to you, which probably has already happened, and say, what are we doing with AI? If you haven't already started down this path,
customer experience wisdom, a dash of travel talk, we've been cleared for takeoff.
The best meals are served outside and require a passport.
Today's guest is someone I've known for a while. So this one, well, it's actually a little extra fun for me to share. Meet Fred Stacey, an honest voice in the world of contact centers and customer experience. He's got nearly 3 decades of experience across leadership, consulting, operations, and tech. Fred's been part of the contact center evolution really from every angle. He's led teams, he's built systems, he's launched startups, and he's worked behind the scenes with vendors who are the ones shaping this space. Fred's overarching theme is one that many of us have as their focus right now, but Fred brings a practical layer to it. Good old AI. But it's not just the hype here. He's successfully implemented with practical use cases. Success. Practical. Yeah, I like the sound of that. And if you're on LinkedIn, there's a good chance you've seen Fred's Monday videos where he brings a grounded take to all things contact center and customer experience. Fred, welcome to CX Passport.
it's about time, man. It is about time. I don't know how we let it take this long. Yeah, it's great to be on. I appreciate it, man.
Cracks me up that's like right out the bat. Hey, dude, you waited too long, Rick. And you're right.
Come on,
I did
man.
wait too long. You know what it was? Because we just were having good old conversations and realized, oh, crap, we should hit record. So today we're going to hit record. And there was something you had said to me in one of those earlier conversations. It caught me. You'd said that every center that you've been at is exactly the same and fundamentally different. Yeah. Tell me more about that. How can a contact center truly differentiate for their customers and their customers' customers?
Yeah, and when I've said that a lot to a lot of people, so it's funny you picked up on that. Fundamentally, it's still the same exact center that I started in when I was 19. We were using green screen applications, and the center was about, making or taking a phone call and communicating with a customer or prospect, or, depending on whether you're inbound or outbound. That fundamentally hasn't changed. Every center is full of agents and supervisors and managers and trainers, and quality assurance is still there, even with AI. All of these things are still fundamentally the same. Before I got into the technology side, as you know, I ran centers, right?
Right.
I was an agent, and then I grew into leadership, and I ran centers and helped companies start ones. And I did a few restarts or recoveries, whatever you want to call it. And the one thing that became very, very obvious to me is you show me a successful center, and I'll guarantee that most of the middle level leaders, the floor level leaders, supervisors and managers are really good at coaching, working with agents. That's still the same. And it's still the same across the board. But every single center is a little bit different because they all have their own processes. They all, if it's a BPO, it represents multiple different types of verticals, products, or companies. And everyone has unique nuances. And there's also no standard with a lot of the platforms, even back in the early days of just, a handful of call center. Back then it was call centers. So there's always variations. Everybody's a unique butterfly, but at the same time, it's all fundamentally the same.
That butterfly example hits me because, butterflies are pretty darn different if you look across them, yet they're still butterflies. So we can kind of get that concept there. You said something, and I promise I want to come back to it, because you talked about the coaching element being the key to the sort of the success differentiator between being same but different. But I can't wait to talk about this overarching theme of AI. And I know that we have been talking about this in the kind of common space for quite a while now, and then it's been going on for decades, of course.
Yeah.
The real key here, though, is that we've gone through that hype cycle. And it's one thing to say, I've implemented AI. It's another thing to be successful at it. You've seen the implementations. You've seen successful implementations. How can a company know before they even get started that they're AI ready for these implementations?
Here's the beauty. There are tools out there today. There are products that you can deploy successfully and get a return on investment today with artificial intelligence. The way they train and tune, the way they grab data and ingest it, for that training, that's all advancing at the same time. So, there are absolutely tools that you don't have to do a lot of work in preparation for. And I'll give you and the audience an example. Conversational analytics. We've had voice analytics for a long time. That's not new. What is new is conversational leveraging, the more modern NLU, NLP, natural language understanding and processing, that really allows it to be significantly more accurate. Now, in order to get ready for that, if you're doing post-call analyzation, even if you've got an old premise-based system, you can technically analyze those recordings, but there's always a but. They're 8-bit mono, so one single recording, and this from being a podcaster, you've got voice tracks, right, for both you and the guest, right? Whereas with the old systems, it was in one single string. So the system it's called diartization, where it splits and it tries to accurately predict which ones are the agents and which ones are the customer. And then it does its, analyzing. Why would you need to do that? I mean, sentiment, versus agent versus customer, critical information, what's valuable for the actual customer voice. That obviously has to come from the customer's side. So, you lose some accuracy, enough to make a pretty big impact. So, but if you're going to do live analytics, you have to have stereo, modern APIs. You have to be able to break in, and analyze both voice paths, in order to deliver it. So, there's some things that you have to take steps for, if you haven't moved from premise to cloud yet, which there's a lot of it out there.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
If you're not in that world, but it's true of almost any business that, especially if it's been a long-running business, technology upgrades can be hard to do, costly to do. And so legacy technology hangs on for a heck of a lot longer than you would expect, right? There are still green screens out there. And even when I was in the banking world a decade ago, there were still green screens, and that seems shocking to think about. And so that element of knowing that you're ready, does the legacy technology make it easier because, oh my gosh, it's so old, we've got to replace it? Or is it more difficult because there's that albatross of the legacy technology holding you back as you move forward?
That's a great question. I like that you went here. Okay, so there are two things. I'll tell you a quick story, because I love stories. When I took over Europe, Middle East, and Asia, our operations were in the Philippines for our Asian market, and I flew into Manila, and the second I landed and got into anywhere around Metro Manila, I had 3G on my cell phone. I hadn't ever had 3G unless I was in like LA or San Francisco or certain big places here in the country.
Right.
And the reason I tell that story is because sometimes it is a heck of a lot easier to jump from nothing or antiquated to modern than it is to actually take the steps that we have here in the States, because we had all this fiber, or we had all this copper, we had all these DSL lines, we had all this stuff already laid, and we had towers built, and to get to 3G for us as a country was a huge project. Whereas in the Philippines, they were throwing 3G satellites up on the glass towers. Sometimes there is an advantage because you can skip straight from 20-year-old tech straight into modern technology. Now, Does that help with artificial intelligence? We all know that AI is as good as the data that it ingests, right?
That's what's coming to
Period.
mind. Does
Um,
that legacy make it harder when it comes to
yeah,
this ingestion as opposed to, hey, I don't have anything?
it could. It very well could. It depends on what the company's done to kind of prepare or move. If they left it in their legacy SQL system, with only structured data really to analyze, no good meta tags on the recordings. There can definitely be some negatives. So I would say it depends. If an organization has really taken their data normalization and structure and build outs, if they've taken it seriously, they might have already overcome this. So it just like every center is the same, but all of
Yeah.
them are different.
Because you've seen so many of those, if I'm a company and I'm seeing all the hype, of course I have to get into this, or perhaps my CEO is saying you have to get into this.
Yeah.
How can I know if I'm that leader of the contact center how ready I am? What are some of the things that I should be, almost like a checklist or whatever that looks like when you're advising a company? How do you help them know you're ready, or hang on, you got some homework to do?
It's still about people, process, then the technology, right?
Mhm.
So people, change management. Have you clearly defined for your agents, your supervisors, your managers, what your AI strategy is? How do you engage them, get them involved? Normal human change management process still
Mhm.
needs to be taking place. A lot of centers do not do this. A lot of companies don't do this when it comes to new technology. It's nothing new, right? It's
Right.
still, you got the processes, you got the people, the change management, the culture.
Mhm.
Are people willing to adopt? Have you communicated well? Are the agents sitting there scared, that they're going to lose their job because you're bringing in conversational analytics? You've got to have the process and documentation. In order to get to, proper knowledge management would lead you into agent assist guidance and artificial intelligence and, some of the orchestration layers to have your processes documented is important.
Mhm.
You got to be able to teach the system somehow.
Right.
And you can either manually talk to it or type it in, or you can ingest digital documents and, train it on those processes.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the technology, which is, your data, your infrastructure, the build versus buy conversation,
Sure.
which used to be a very small conversation on whether or not we build.
Mhm.
But with modern technology and artificial intelligence and development, and the speed at which you can build a new product to 80%, the APIs in the modern world of integrations used to take, weeks, if not months,
Right.
to get the developers to actually sit down and do the right testing and get it deployed. Now is like, an hour, two, if it's decently documented. There's all three paths that you have to do.
Got it.
And then let's talk about, what you mentioned, the CEO or the board demanding that you bring AI into the company. If you're running a center and somebody comes running up to you, which probably has already happened, and saying,
Oh,
"What
sure.
are we doing with
Yeah.
AI?" If you haven't already started down this path, that's okay. There are point solutions that you can get in, but you still have to do the whole work.
A lot of times when it's the here's what's next, here's what's new, it's good to, let's focus on what has been there, well, since the beginning of human history, humans. And I've
Yeah.
said I wanted to come back to it. This feels like the right time to do that. You talked about the coaching aspect of that. And coaching often is a pejorative. I mean it in the very neutral sense. How can you help someone do better at what they are seeking to do better? Right? No different than an
Right.
athletic coach. How can AI be used to
Mm,
amplify that, not replace it, but how can
right.
it be used to amplify that so that those who are the coaches are helping those that are being coached in a better way? Because
Yeah.
AI often has that scary, ooh, anti-human vibe. How can it be used to help
Right.
this very human thing of coaching?
Yeah. So let's take it down to the floor level and let's talk through it. So, typically you're at a 1 to 15 ratio, where one
Mm,
supervisor to 15
right.
agents. So historically, pre I mean, even with voice analytics, you weren't doing 100% of the coaching, the reviews, the scorecards, whatever you want to call it. So QA only touched maybe 1%, right? So artificial intelligence, the first thing that it does is it scales it to 100%. You can 100% score really accurately calls on your floor, period. And then with that data, you can then kick back out, what are the common misses? Where can someone work? But some companies are also focusing on the agent experience. They're listening to the agent's sentiment. They're understanding the agent's behavior and recognizing patterns for potential risk of churn. So understanding there's your high performers that can burn themselves out, and you definitely don't want to get them. You don't want to let them churn, right? Anytime you see any chance of burnout, and you start working with them and understand what's going on. And then you've got the other side of the spectrum where you've got your bottom, let's say 10%, and you see them hitting that stage of natural churn, that you're going to have to replace, and it helps HR and hiring and artificial intelligence in general. What it really gives is the human scale that they've never had before.
Yeah, and if I'm an agent, I think I would want that, because sure, there could have been some cherry picking in the past of, hey, I can go listen to these calls. But in general, I would imagine that as an agent, there's times that I would have experienced, I know that call sucked.
Yeah.
But I was angry. The customer was a dick, whatever it was. Did you not hear the 99 other calls? Now those 99 other calls are in play, and an agent can feel like that they were truly evaluated and understood. Yeah. Fred, I want to take you out of the AI space. We need to take a little break here.
Okay.
You mentioned the Philippines. I also know that you're a pretty solid global traveler, have been, continue to be so. And I love talking to folks that have traveled the globe, especially in the context of customer experience. Not so much from a business perspective, but what have you experienced as a customer when you've traveled the globe? Where are the expectations around customer experience? Where have they been different? Where have they been same as compared to what you expect here in the U.S.?
So I struggle here in the States. I think we've lost customer experience at a lot of levels. But when I've traveled globally, it's so interesting. So the hotels, first of all, let's talk about the travel experience, right? If you've traveled and flown on some international airlines, the service is amazing. The hotels internationally, I have had nothing but amazing experiences. I've had nothing but great experiences. Love traveling.
Fred, I too love traveling. You also mentioned some destinations that are quite a long way away from where you are there in Colorado.
Yeah.
It's nice to take a little break in the first class lounge when you get that opportunity. So I invite you to do that with me here today. We'll move quickly, have a little bit of fun here. What is a dream travel location from your past?
From my past, Athens. Athens was absolutely amazing. And I did that one solo. Nice. And I walked up down the street to Acropolis, past Zeus's temple. And, I did the whole walk by myself, and, just contemplation and, considering where you're at and the path that you're walking, that the, millions and millions of people had made over history. Yeah.
There's something about that walk, the contemplative walk, that is such a delight when it comes to travel. What about looking forward? What is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
There's a few. I never made it to New Zealand or Australia. New Zealand in particular, I'm a those that really know me, I'm a geek. I grew up reading Tolkien.
There it
and
is.
When they filmed Lord of the Rings in New Zealand, just some of the scenery there, I would love to see that.
I too want to get down to New Zealand and Australia. That's one that I've not had the opportunity to yet, but I sure hope to someday. What is a favorite thing of yours to eat?
Steak, grass-fed beef. I spent a lot of time, lifting, and part of fitness and health awareness is also the food intake.
Right.
And steak is the most complete food that anybody could eat. And I'd make an
I love
amazing
this.
steak.
I love steak, but that felt like brought to you by the Beef Ranch Association of America. But yes,
Right, right.
I too love a good steak as well. Other way here, Fred. What is something you were forced to eat growing up, but you hated as a kid?
Liver and onions.
Ugh.
My old man, I don't know how he ate that, but yeah, I was forced, really once, maybe twice, but I still remember the texture and the smell and I mean, I can't do it. Can't
Yeah,
do it,
that's
man.
one that's come up a few times, and it is. I think there's some generational element to it. That there was a generation that valued it, enjoyed it, and celebrated it, and our generation's like, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
So I'm with you there. Time for us to leave the first class lounge here, Fred. What is one travel item, not including your phone or your passport, that you will not leave home without?
The one thing I will never leave without doing is packing a couple of extra of the underwear and socks, right? I mean, when you've traveled enough, you realize
Yep.
that little extra space, it's okay. Everything else I can live without.
Yeah, there's something about the security of just that one extra pair of drawers, that extra pair of socks. Maybe I went for a run that day and they got a little sweaty, so I need a fresh pair. Yeah, I understand that absolutely, Fred. Going back to AI,
Mhm.
we hear kind of almost this monolithic AI, and this is how you use it in your company. And you often hear things like Amazon's got this incredibly high AI technology customer response rate.
Yeah.
For me, right, when I've had an order go awry, the answer is usually a very quick, easy refund or a credit, just something very simple, very technology. Well, that works for a beast like Amazon.
Mhm.
Should that same objective apply to a company that's, well, not Amazon?
Well, I think a company decides its culture and hence defines its experience that it looks to achieve, right?
Mm,
Amazon didn't start out like this, right? They were a book, online bookseller, right? It just Bezos
yeah.
was smart enough to realize what his product was and what his differentiator was,
Mhm.
and to continually methodically drive the product to be the perfect experience.
Mhm.
That's the thing that people miss when they use Amazon, and I do it too. Amazon, it's not. Yes, their customer teams, their support teams, all that stuff. Those are absolutely essential, but they've continually improved the front end of the experience, which is their product.
Mhm.
Same day, next day delivery, on time packages. What they do, they started putting up facilities everywhere. They didn't just get there though. They didn't. It's not like somebody magically opened up and he was like, "Here's the model." Right? He had rules about
Right.
teams, size of teams, efficiency, customer always coming first, and he built that into the culture. Now that may not necessarily be right for everybody, right? And that kind of level of automation and efficiency on the front end. If you're an experiential company, you want people to come in. It's not
Mhm.
about getting them in and out. It's about giving them the experience that you come in. So you're building differently, right? But in the end, should everybody be looking to automate as much as possible? Well, if you're an executive, your fiscal responsibility to lead your company is to still continue to allow the company to have more fuel, in other words, money, to grow the organization. So of course you should be figuring out within your culture and within your vision and mission and delivery, how to automate as much as possible. And so yes, everybody should be looking at that, but
Mhm.
within the guise of the way that they expect to treat customers and the experience that they're building.
Yeah, and when you're saying that, I'm thinking because you use the word experiential company, and of course I'm exaggerating here, right? But Viking Cruises, which sells itself as a high touch, high luxury travel experience, probably would not benefit from automating a whole lot inside of its trips. Now, maybe automating some of the front end, the back, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the actual trip itself, I don't know that automating necessarily is where they'd want to be. And finding, to your point, what is it that is their value? What is it that their customer values? And go after that rather than just arbitrarily saying, I need technology. I want to close out with this. And I know it's kind of closing on a negative, but I think you'll find a way to spin this.
Yeah.
You have seen plenty out there, the good, the bad. What are some of your fave, hey, we deployed AI, it failed, now we're back in the market stories?
I never want to hear that. Look,
hey, but it's good for you. You're probably the one they're like, hey, Fred, it failed. Can you help me out?
I'm sorry, we should have listened. I love that. We've been failing at this stuff for a long time. If I take you back, you remember when IBM came into the contact center market and said AI is ready for the contact center, and we ended up building a supervised learning based chatbot back then. We're talking 14, 15 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood, and we failed. And continually we have seen artificial intelligence technologies be, pitched as ready. I'll give you some examples that I thought were shining examples of why not taking your time and understanding the implications of a technology like this has done significant damage. And what to do. We'll end on positive, I promise. So one of the examples that always sticks in my head is about, I'd say early first quarter of 23, post ChatGPT launch. Somebody launched an LLM bot that they were a .org for an eating disorder hotline. Okay. And at first it worked, right? But then all of a sudden, over time, it started to tell people with eating disorders to just not eat.
Oh, no.
So we're in a world now where your IT team right now could be developing and testing and using these technologies without guardrails. There's so many failures in our history with AI in this industry that anybody could name probably 100 of them, man.
The one, that story that you're sharing there, because I would say the one that I think a lot of folks came to know was the person who negotiated a car with a bot and got it for $1, whatever the story was, right? That's and we can kind of slough that off as it screwed the company over.
Yeah.
What you're describing can actually be a life and death situation. And I think that I'm glad that you shared that story, because it is a reminder to me and a reminder to our listeners that this isn't just sort of economic business. It is.
It is.
And there can be real, honest to God, life and death elements to this with the misapplication of AI and something as simple as a chatbot. Fred, I'm glad you brought that example into this. Fred, this has been a wide-ranging ride, and that's the way I like it to be. That's the way our travel should be on CX Passport. If folks wanted to get to know a little bit more about you, your views on customer experience in general, your views on AI in specific, or, hey, just where's the best restaurant in Manila? How should they get in touch?
So LinkedIn is always your best bet. Some people use, all kinds of social media, stuff like that. I'm LinkedIn.
Fred, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed learning kind of about AI in general. I certainly appreciated the discussion around, hey, don't do it until you're ready, and here's the things you need to consider to be ready. And absolutely, as we ended there talking about, look, this is real. And if you bleep it up, you could really screw things up, not just for your company, but for another human out there. Fred, I'm glad you took us to that level. It's been a good one, Fred. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on CX Passport.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you like today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.